meeting to order. 6:01. Approval of the minutes from August and September 2021.
Make a motion to approve as presented.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. Any second?
Second.
And it's second. Any discussion? Minutes are approved. No. Sorry. All those opposed? There we go. Now it works. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Appearances of interested citizens.
Oh, we have a list. You just came in late, so.
Whoops.
We'll start
Here.
with the list. Go ahead.
Strike her off the list.
No, I'll add you to the list, Carol. Go ahead.
What's it say?
Gary Whale.
Gary Wales.
Gary Whalen.
Whalen. Oh, it's hard to read.
It's Whale?
Yeah, there's an E in there.
Oh, sorry about that.
Hi, my name's Gary Whalen. I'm a resident of Kaiser. And what brought me here tonight is I understand that there's a, excuse me, perhaps a changing of management of the Summer Parks concert series. And I have some questions and concerns. Want me to just kind of go through them and see what happens, or is there going to be discussion on that?
Are you gonna push that?
Staff?
Go ahead, just voice your concern.
Okay, I saw Chair Loudon at the park today, and we were talking about the summer concert series, and I understand there might be a new management person or persons for next year, and I have a few questions, and so I thought I'd bring them to the board. One of them is, has that group or groups been finally selected and approved by the council, is one. And then historically, that's been done on a free to the public. The funding has all been done through sponsorships and concession sales. And I think the city has, on the majority of the years, given about $2,000 to that, but the bulk of the money has come from vendors and sponsors rather than taxpayers or fee payers. And is that going to continue?
Okay.
And then if there is a different provider, are they going to have access to, or will they use the existing container that's been there for the last 15 years? Because I don't think that's the city property. I believe that is actually privately owned or controlled. And there's a lot of maintenance that goes on down there. The watering, because, you know, the parts of the park that are irrigated, and the park staff does a great job. But all that other stuff is hand watered, and that takes a lot of time and commitment. So is the new or potentially new manager going to take that on? Because there's been an awful lot of work done by a number of people to maintain that, so it doesn't look like, you know, how we build a new school and for 2 years, all the school property looks great, and then it becomes a weed bed.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to see that responsibility shift to more work on the park staff, because they're already doing a great job, but they don't have the additional resources and man hours possibly to take on additional responsibilities. And if it's going to be kind of one of the signature locations in the city system, I think it should put on a good, professional, happy-looking face, not a weed bed. So those are just some of my questions, but.
So a lot of what you're saying, I am not aware of. So this is new information. I overheard some conversations before this meeting, but Robert, can you guide us on what's happening and what the foreseeable future is or context to the situation?
I can guide you a little bit. An RFP was sent out to a committee, and that was completed. I do not believe that the council has made an official decision on selecting the new manager for that. I do not know the answer to the continued funds just yet. I can find out for you, Gary. And the container, if it does not belong to the city, I would imagine would be removed and something else would need to go in there for future use if there was a change to take place.
Okay. Excuse me, so do you know how many people were sent an RFP for this, Robert?
That were on the committee? Like
No,
that reviewed
how
it?
many people were sent out, or who was an RFP sent to, and how was those people
I believe there were
selected?
two groups were, two groups responded to it. I do not know how many it was sent to. Or
Okay.
how many people were possibly interested, but I know we got 2 responses.
And I really appreciate and respect all the work that you and your staff do, but I just would like to, this has been a really good activity, opportunity for the city and the city residents, as well as people who come from outside our city to participate in. And I know that you and your guys do a great job in the parks, and I also know the limitations you have. So, put on more stuff, because that's not an irrigated sprinkler system. That's all hand watering, and that takes a lot of time. And the fertilizing and all that, so.
No, I understand what you're
I just
saying.
want to maintain the quality of what's there and not put added cost onto the taxpayers if that's possibly avoidable. Or added fees, if you want to term it that way. So those are my questions. Thank you.
Any other
Robert?
questions?
One question I would have to what you said is, if city staff, if park staff does not handle all of the landscaping, watering in that area, is it defined in the contract for whoever the vendor is that is an expectation, or has that just been something that's been done out of the goodness of the current manager's heart? Is that defined, and if not, is that something that could be defined with any upcoming contract for the new manager?
Potentially it could be. Thus far, it's not been defined in the contract to my knowledge, so it was out of the goodness of whoever was managing it.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Do you want me to chime in?
No, go ahead.
Thank you. It is, the RFP did go out. It went to, my understanding is two responses, of which there was a group, they have, basically graded the RFP. It has now, it is coming before council. It has not, I have not seen it, as far as like what the final contract or anything. But I would highly recommend that you bring those questions and concerns back and testify before council regarding this.
Okay. Counselor Smith, do you know when that's coming before
I'm
council?
expecting it fairly soon. I'm happy to shoot you a text message when I see it.
I would appreciate it if you would.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My question was going to be, most of these decisions they happen in council. We represent the music selection approval, so I think that's probably why I wasn't really well informed. So, but that's understanding. That's correct, right?
Yep.
We're this group wouldn't make that decision, but I do think that would be highly recommended to testify in front of council.
Well, I appreciate that. And I also understand that the council makes decisions for all boards and commissions, but they listen, the Parks Board, Planning Commission, whatever it is, they weigh in on a subject, and the council looks on you for their leadership
Okay.
towards making a final decision. So if you have some input, I think it would be appropriate to provide that to the council
Yeah.
so they can make a more informed decision.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Matt?
Never mind, we're good.
Come on, Matt, haven't heard you yet.
Okay, next one, yeah.
Clint, you want to speak?
My name's Clint Holland, and it's the first time I've been back to the Parks Board since I served on here, and this great body has done a lot of stuff for the community of Kaiser, and you should be very proud of the stuff you've done. I would like to add to some of the stuff that Gary has said, and I want to start with the RFP. I had called Tammy, the Attorney Secretary, probably a month before they put the RFP out. And I says, how you coming on the RFP? She says, well, we're still working on it, but we will mail it to you and we will send you an email. So later on, I get a call from one of the city council members, and he says, how you coming on the RFP? I said, what RFP? He says, well, the RFP's been out for 2.5 weeks. And I says, that's strange, I haven't seen it. So I called Tammy. She said, oh yes, we mailed it to you. We mailed it to Post Office Box 750, which I haven't had for 10 years. We emailed it to you. Wasn't my email, so I don't know who the person was that she was talking about. So I never received the email. And I said to Tammy, I says, Tammy, you know, this is really, really strange. You communicate with me in the summertime, and then on the off season too, but in the summertime, once a week, either by mailing stuff to me, or emailing me, or messaging me. And I says, it's really strange. Here you put out the RFP, you send it to somebody else's stuff. It's really strange, but you really don't send it to the same communication that you've been making for 9 years. So that was the first part of what happened on the RFP. When I finally got the RFP from her, I was out of town, so I only had a day and a half of the 4 or 5 weeks they give people, a day and a half to answer the RFP. That's all the time I had. I was really rushed on it. And I was amazed at a lot of stuff that happened on this RFP. And the other thing that I was amazed at, and I'd like to ask David if he got notified, because he was on the committee that reviewed that stuff, if he got notified that I didn't get sent the RFP.
No, I wasn't.
Okay? How about you, Matt? You were on the committee. Did you get notification that they didn't send the RFP to me?
So we didn't get notified that anyone was sent any specific RFP. It was announced, but to whom it was sent to, other than it being published on the website, according to the city's process, no, I was not told it was sent to anybody.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't sent to the committee members, which I think would be very important. Actually, Robert, you were on the committee too, right?
Yep.
And I asked you earlier, and you said you didn't get notice that I didn't get the RFP sent out when it was supposed to be sent to me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Let me just give you a little background. Gary, 5 other people built the amphitheater. Some of the stuff I'm going to talk about is the same thing that's going on with the Kaiser Little League Complex. Kaiser Little Complex, $1.5 million in cash has been put in that by the youth programs, $2.5 million in donations, and tens of thousands of hours of manpower. And now, after they built this up, they got huge tournaments up there. They're now giving it to somebody to make money. Okay, I don't know if you guys know that, but it's right in the contract. It says any profits that are above doing these items at the complex can go to the new manager. Little League has never taken a dime out of that complex since it was built. And yet they're turning around and giving that all to somebody to make money. Okay? The other thing that bothers me about RFPs, they do the RFP, but when they make the contract with somebody, they completely change it. For instance, on the Little League field, they turned around and there's 3 huge buildings up there. Equipment room, a board room upstairs, a big concession stand, big bathroom. The youth programs have had to pay for all that cost. All that cost. That's amazing. But they have done it. They just put a new roof on the buildings 3 years ago. And now in the contract, it says that the buildings will be maintained and repaired by the city of Keizer. They don't even follow the stuff they put out on an RFP. They change stuff. They let people take money out of the complex. I mean, all kinds of stuff like that happens. I mean, I can go on and talk about the stuff that's not right up there. But I've been in that youth program, haven't been for the last year and a half. But I'm amazed that they have been able to maintain this, and now they're bringing great big tournaments here, and they're giving it to somebody else that has never run a youth program. Let's go back to the amphitheater. 6 of us, including Gary over there, built the amphitheater from scratch. We raised all the money. It's about $550,000 worth of work at that complex. It took us a year to do because we didn't have the money. We raised the money from volunteers like Highway Fuel. I mean, just a Rick Day, unbelievable the people who came forward to help us. We thought what we'd do is manage that first year, and we only did 1 concert. And then we kind of liked it, and we did a good job on it, so we decided to run the rest of the concerts and did a deal with the city, and we have operated that facility for 9 years. 9 years. We have never got a complaint. We had an accident out there that somebody fell, but we've never had a complaint. Every time I see Robert, I still Bill Lawyer, Tim at the city, Shannon Johnson, it doesn't matter, city manager, I ask them, if you got any complaints, anything wrong, and they have always said no. So I think we've done a very good job. It says in the contract, the city will maintain that amphitheater. Guess who maintains it all the time? Clint Holland and a couple of people. Robert over here doesn't have the help to take care of the facility. And I don't mind helping Robert because he does a good job on a lot of stuff. And he's just, I mean, the guy is swamped on the things that they've assigned to him. So I have helped over the years take care of all these things that need to be done. Last year, there was no concerts because of the COVID. Guess what? I spent 548 hours maintaining that because they couldn't do it. They didn't have the help. They weren't watering it when I first got to it. And you know what happens, like some of the school property just goes to pieces once they turn the water off. So I did that. This year was even worse because we had that freeze. My group hauled 12 and a half trailer loads of debris out of that amphitheater from all the trees that froze and fell. We took care of all that. I mean, hours and hours and hours. Robert calls me and says, hey, Clint, we got some safety problems in all the trails because all these trees are down over the trails. Can you help me? I says, I'll take care of it. Had 4 people all day Saturday cleaning that, trimming the trees, getting them off the pathways. And then the next day, Sunday, 2 of us did that. And we cleaned all that up. We also take care of the dog park on a lot of stuff. I could tell you all kinds of stories about the dog park, but we haven't got time for that. But this year, we pressure washed the stage as we did last year. And if you've ever been down there, the seating, when you sit down on the seats where your legs are, there's mold that thick onto it. So we pressure washed every piece of concrete that was out there. And because I thought it was a safety problem. I have always looked after the safety for the city first, the safety of KRA, which runs that. And I think we've done a fabulous job, and I'm really sad to see, and especially how it happened, that we've been eliminated from doing the concerts. And we've had some big concerts out. If you need some pictures of how packed our concerts are, anybody been to JFK? Anybody been to Johnny Limbo and the Lugnuts? It's just incredible how we pack those places.
Yep.
We are able to take care of all the parking. We have so many volunteer people that help that we've never had any problem. Gary's there almost for every concert to help in the concession stand. We have guys that do the parking. And we haven't had any problems. We've done a very, very good job over the years. And I'm just surprised at some of the things that have happened and the way it happened and the reasons it happened really kind of shocked me a little.
Yeah.
I'll answer any questions anybody has. Yes?
Can you fill us in a little bit on why this happened? In a short amount of time.
I can, but I don't want to say here.
Okay.
Because it affects different people,
Well,
what's
it sounds-
going on. Yes?
To me, it sounds like there needs to be an extension of the RFP and have it resubmitted. From an uneducated standpoint.
Right.
That's to me what it sounds like.
Even if they would have said to me, and by the way, never have they called me to come in front and talk about the amphitheater. All they did is grade it. I had people say to me, the city, there's only 6 things you have to answer in a 8-page document, and it's the RFP content. And then they tell you a lot of other stuff. You have to have $1 million insurance. You have to do this on the parking. You have to do this on the bathrooms. I didn't have time to talk about any of those, so I put okay, because I already do all that stuff. And I was downgraded even for that, okay? And to me, I didn't need to answer it, but I did put okay next to it, that I will abide by those rules of everything that they put down. What was the question you asked me right at the end? I wanted to answer that.
It was just, seems to me like it needs to be sent back out. The RFP needs to be sent back out and it needs to be relooked
Well,
at.
sometimes that's pretty hard. I mean, if they would have said to me, hey, why don't we give 6 of them to the chamber and 6 of them to KRA, who runs all that, I could accept that. But the way they did everything, there is, in the Little League deal, there's a lot of conflicts of interest on that. I haven't got to the story on everything on the amphitheater yet. I'm working on it, but I'm just amazed that I didn't get the RFP.
Yeah.
Yes?
Is there any information on there on disputing the process or disputing?
I talked to the city manager today about it. I didn't really get anything except he said that it has not been approved yet and the city council has the final say. So I plan to appear at the city council for it. And that's about all I can tell you, that I'll just have to wait till then. But sometimes when you do this process, it's pretty hard to overchange it, even if the city did things wrong.
Any other questions for Clint?
Do you want me to answer that?
Yes.
Okay, so generally, if there's an RFP that goes out and if they finalize it, they bring it before council, it can be declared as a failed RFP if the council does not vote it through. Just so you know.
Say that one more time, I'm sorry.
So if the RFP can be awarded, but the council has the final say. So if the council does not pass the RFP, it's 4-3 or what, or 3-4, however you want to say it, and it fails, it is declared a failed RFP, and they have to basically start over. You would have seen something, it was very close to that when we had the city, when we were hiring the recruiting firm for the city manager search, where we weren't all in agreement with the particular RFP and how it was awarded. And Councilor Day was quite vocal about it. At that point, I moved to basically send it back out, to say it was a failed RFP and to put it back out for bid. He then changed his mind. That motion did not pass. They moved forward on it. But that's the process there, is that it actually comes before council. You can testify on that date, and then the council can discuss and can then vote. And if it fails, they have to send it back out.
Right. Well,
Just so you know the process.
in the case of the Little League contract, neither one of them met the requirement. and of the RFP. They didn't answer the right questions and all kinds of stuff. It was incredible. So they get 2 weeks extension on the RFP. And a lot of stuff has happened. I don't want to go into all the things, but a lot of things has happened on that RFP with the conflicts. And I'm just saying, the youth programs are really getting stabbed on this thing. And only one person's going to make money out of this whole thing. So, for what it's worth.
This situation is really sucky. I'm really sorry that all of what you said, I'm just like, ugh, it feels really yucky. And I don't know all the processes or the pieces, but I think that definitely council is a great place to advocate, because you're right, there's things on the RFPs that you don't add in, right? It's just, you just do it. That's just who you are, and that's the community member that you are, right?
Right.
And so in the RFP process, it gets in the way sometimes, because you don't remember everything that you do until that is gone, and then everybody goes, wow, we really are missing out. This person did all of these pieces. So I know that can get in the way, and I'm really sorry that this process got a little fumbled.
Yeah.
So it's really stinky.
Okay, thanks very much for listening.
Thanks, Clint. Carol, it's your turn.
Sorry, I was gone. I forgot I had to sign in.
Well, doesn't want to speak.
Oh, okay.
It's going away, it's going. Carol Dorfler, West Kaiser Neighborhood Association. I just want to, first, I want to thank Clint Holland for every damn thing he has done down at the amphitheater. I saw him down there digging holes for irrigation.
Right.
I have seen him do so many things, and he's a good neighbor down the street. So thank you. Thank you, Clint. Thank you, Gary. I know you've worked real hard down there too. And I came.
Pull the microphone down a little.
And I came to thank all of you who came to, on the parks tour and came to visit our little kind of overgrown, hidden little park, Panacea, and listen to what we had to say about things that could happen there. Not big things. We don't want big things to happen there, but it does have river access. It'd be a great place to put a couple of benches as some viewing platforms. Be a great place for birding down there. The river access is really precious. We have a lot of it in Kaiser. We are fortunate in that part, and we need to be able to use that, or at least access it somewhat. I went over to Northview today to look at the new stairs that had been put in over there, and I thought, I wonder if there could possibly be some stairs put in at Panacea, and there's like 14 of them. I think I counted 14 going down there, and it would get you quite a ways down there. I realize the dike is there, and that causes some issues, but you never know till you ask. And you never know till you try to get that information, what would happen there. So anyway, I'd like to thank all of you for coming. It was fun to have you there, and thanks for the interest. Questions? Good.
Thank you, Carol.
Thanks again, Clint.
It's your turn.
Master plan update.
Yes, master plan update presentation.
Great, thank you so much. Robert, did you want to say a few words before I jump in?
Not really, just go right ahead. Everybody's met Cindy before, I think, so have at it.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm Cindy Mendoza. I'm the Director of Parks and Recreation at MIG, and I am excited to be here tonight to give you the latest update on where we stand on the Parks Master Plan. Tonight's meeting in particular, besides an update on things, I wanted to give a reminder of some of the community's priorities that has fed into the Parks Master Plan, plus talk about some new outreach findings that we've obtained. and then identify how those factor into the system-wide recommendations, including goals for the park system, site-specific recommendations, and then lead a discussion with regards to the action plan that we are creating next. As you know, you've seen this graphic before. The planning process included a foundational phase that looked at systems development charges, the park system, conducted community outreach, as well as took inventory and stock of the park system. And then we moved into the needs assessment phase, which is where we were when we gave you the last update to this plan, where we talked about level of service and opportunities. At this point, we've been working on the capital improvement plan, which are the recommendations that not only include the capital projects, those enhancements to your specific sites, but also an overview of some of the operational needs for the park system as well. And with your feedback tonight, we'll then move into identifying a funding plan and costs associated with making the improvements before we come back to you with a draft master plan to discuss adoption. So just a quick reminder that this is a 10-year plan, and it does include not only the projects, but also the policies and implementation strategies to manage and enhance the park system. So with that, this has always been a community-driven plan. We've shared with you findings from our stakeholder interviews where we talked to various council members and others about the park system. Since then, we've also conducted a sports focus group meeting and a focus group with the West Kaiser neighborhood group. We conducted the online questionnaire, and you've seen those findings. But we also had a booth at the Iris Festival, which, by the way, Tanya was absolutely fabulous in helping us get the feedback that we needed to understand more about community priorities. So since it's been a while since I've been here, I want to call your attention to some of these findings just as a reminder, and so you can be very clear about where the recommendations are coming from in the planning process. We asked people in the questionnaire that prior to COVID, what are the types of activities people would like to be doing? And biking, walking, and running was by far number one, followed by playing at playgrounds and attending community events. But when we ask about funding priorities, it was very clear about repairing and replacing what you have, followed by building trails, making sure we're providing for the routine maintenance that needs to happen, and making sure Robert and his crews have resources to take care of the park system. And then following at that, adding a greater variety of features in parks, including sports fields and courts. We ask in the questionnaire what's needed or missing in parks. Trails was number one, but better river access was number two. A variety of play features, nature play, water play, thematic play, scored number three, and then even challenge elements. And then soft surface trails appeared next on the list. So what you can see is we're getting a general consensus around some community priorities, but they don't always line up on what's number one. So what's interesting is when we went to the Iris Festival, and by the way, the Iris Festival, as you know, attracts a variety of people who are not necessarily residents of the city, but who have an interest in community events in your park system. When we asked them about top priorities, it was interesting in this case that by far improving river access emerged as the top priority, followed by a near tie in terms of maintaining park assets and even adding new recreation opportunities and diversifying things. We ask about new features specifically desired in the park system. And again, while we had a number of responses to this is not a representative sample. So what you see is the fact that it was a warm day outside and a splash pad seemed as one of the most amazing things that we could add to the park system. You have a very good splash pad, a spray fountain right now that people are playing in. So we don't take this as an ultimatum of what you have to do, but just a sense of the priorities that in the summertime they want opportunities to cool off and play. They want new opportunities, which is something that came through very clearly here, whether it's a bike skills course and a pump track, or even looking at more of some of the things you have, such as dog parks. We asked a question specifically about Keizer Rapids Park because in our last conversation with you, we recognized that that is a site with multiple different opportunities and a few different visions on what could be done there. And that's where we heard, consistent with the other result about having a greater variety of things, that there should be emphasis on an adventure course, for example, as well as more fishing access provided. This is a question that was really interesting because we asked about a site concept that included existing features as well as some things that were planned or proposed at that time, and we asked for feedback. So it was really interesting to also see how important the big toy was to people. And the two different scores are where we asked people, or what's your first priority, the thing that is most important to you at the site. And then the yellow is, are there additional priorities that you'd like to acknowledge? So with that information, we went ahead and developed an understanding of the key needs for the park system, which I shared with you last time. We talked about asset management, ADA accessibility, whether or not you needed new parkland, to what extent we wanted to invest in trails or whether that was a transportation type investment. And then what to do about recreation programs in particular was something that came up here. And so based on that information and how we look across your park system at the different types of parks that are noted there, we made sure that we captured all of this information in 6 key goals for your system. And those are number 1, increasing the amount of maintenance that you provide or enhancing maintenance to ensure your facilities and parks are well stewarded, clean and green. The second one that's always been a priority is repairing and replacing aging and worn assets. Third one, again, that we heard a lot about in this last Iris Festival is ensuring not only river access, but also connections to nature. Fourth is emphasizing not only sports, but also fitness and play. That's part of that activity that people want to do that we've seen since COVID is even stronger, that need to be outdoors. The next one is expanding a variety of events and activities. And then the last one is emphasizing trail connectivity. And I want to go through each of those just briefly so you understand a little bit more about the types of recommendations that we're making in each. So the first goal around maintaining your park system, it's addressing everything from the system-wide need to establish maintenance tiers, recognizing that you will have to invest resources more heavily in your most popular sites, and that there are other sites that you will not have the resources to invest in. And maybe that does require some community support in terms of taking care of them. But really, this is about acknowledging the fact that maintenance crews right now are stretched so thin that any new amenity and facility that is added needs to come with additional maintenance support. And that needs to be clear here. And what we also heard, especially in the conversation around connecting people to nature, is that there needs to be more resources spent not only on taking care of the developed parks, amenities and facilities and landscaping, but also ensuring that we're taking care of the natural resources as well. And one of the things that we heard works really successfully are some of the partner involvement, neighborhood cleanups, some of the comments that we heard here just moments ago of what residents and other groups are contributing to maintaining your park system. And then just making sure that we're ensuring safety. And one of the things that came up in the park condition assessment was paths with trip hazards, for example, or hazards in getting to picnic tables. So it's those types of improvements that are needed. And then with the next goal, focusing on repairing and replacing old and worn features, a lot of the comfort amenities you have in your parks, the benches and restrooms and those types of things, we want to make sure that those are in good shape and that all of your basic amenities and facilities such as playgrounds, shelters, and sports courts are operable. We want to make sure too that we're focusing on revenue generating facilities. So things that are programmable, that are supporting sports leagues, for example, or community events, want to make sure that those are repaired and replaced when needed. Again, ADA accessibility throughout the system has come up. So anytime things are repaired and replaced, they obviously have to conform with current ADA guidelines. And then there's a piece of this that's a recommendation to make sure that when we are replacing amenities in some parks, that we're keeping in mind that you're not necessarily putting back in the exact same thing you took out. And so in the interest of providing a greater variety of opportunities, there are recommendations to consider something different in a few cases. With regards to river and nature access, obviously there are only a few sites that are supporting river access. And what we want to make clear, though, is that there are some sites that are ideal for connections to the water, and others, even though Palmacia is a gem, you wouldn't want that to be the third major water access point, because that would make that a special use site that would attract more residents than that small little cul-de-sac can support. And while it would be advantageous for nearby neighbors, neighbors would not like it if suddenly there were lots of people visiting that spot for water access. So we look at protecting neighbors, but also supporting to meet their needs. And so looking at like Kaiser Rapids Park and Wallace House Park to be able to meet those water access needs. And then as part of the recommendations, again, to improve connections to nature and the river through activities such as fishing, canoeing and kayaking, and even nature play. Through Kaiser Rapids Park and other places, improving the wayfinding of trails, something we heard about through a lot of the public outreach. And then even highlighting natural features. For example, at Claggett Creek Park, making sure there's a walking path there along the creek and views of the creek so people can appreciate the natural resources that are there. For sports and play, it's recognizing the fact that the city has a shortage of rectangular sports fields. Those are the ones that can be used for soccer, football, rugby, and similar uses. So besides adding sports fields in that regard, it's definitely taking care of the baseball, softball fields that you already have, such as those at Kaiser Little League Park, adding and replacing sports courts to diversify those. And even as we heard from the sports focus group, make sure we're providing a quality scheduling process to make it clear how leagues are assigned priorities for sports field use. And then as part of this, it's also about improving play areas as well and adding fitness opportunities, such as the new fitness stations that you've already been adding to your park system. With regards to variety, again, it's integrating some new types of amenities and facilities that you don't currently have. The climbing elements, for example, in places. There's the bike skills course that we talk about expanding, the new adventure course that we're talking about at Kaiser Rapids Park, and then even social spaces, gathering spaces for the community to support events. Looking at trail connectivity, in talking to you last time, we identified 3 potential corridors for off-street multi-use trails, and I'll show you a map of those momentarily, but also talked about how adding loop trails in parks would also improve walking opportunities for residents, and the need to improve wayfinding and connections to the regional trail system. And then as part of that, we also looked at the difference between off-street trails and on-street trails like bike routes and bike lanes that are noted in your transportation system plan. And so coordinating the way we look at those. And so just so you can see what it looks like on the map, the orange lines that you see on there are all from the transportation system plan. Those are identifying either bike routes or multi-use paths that are existing, or in some cases, ones that were proposed in the 2009 plan as well. And then bike lanes are noted here in kind of a purplish color as well, so you get a sense of the connectivity. But the overlay that we're adding is that we want to make sure that there are off-street trail connections. And we recognize that some of them are a longer-term vision that will take more time to implement. But the 3 key ones we see are the Lavish Ditch, which was actually raised by you all as an important one to add to this process. And then we looked at the Claggett Creek connections. It actually has an opportunity to connect several different parks onto the high school there. And potentially, if there's a way to get across to the south, this was a recommendation from the transportation plan, but it's going to be costly to implement, connecting eventually to the Kroc Center. And the third one that we're adding at this point is recognizing that there needs to be good opportunities to walk and bike to Keizer Rapids Park. We're going to talk a bit about parking needs at that site, but one of the ways to alleviate that is, again, making sure that people have an opportunity to get there through other means. And in the transportation plan, there were on-street bike lanes that were recommended, but no off-street trail to get to that park. So that may be a street improvement long-term, but recognizing that, again, enhancing walking and biking opportunities and connecting into that trail system is advantageous. So I want to call attention, since I've gone through those goals quickly, about some of the things that we are not seeing in the plan. Based on your feedback last time, we talked about the areas of needs for parkland and decided that really the focus here was more about taking care of the amenities and facilities you have and adding a variety of facilities, not acquiring new park sites. So you will not see recommendations for new parkland. There's not a recommendation in the short term to build an indoor rec facility. We don't see that happening in the next 10 years, instead with the emphasis on Kaiser Rapids Park. We talked a bit about the city's role in providing rec programs. And I think while there was a conversation about, is this the Parks Advisory Board or the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, the consensus was that the city doesn't necessarily want to be in the business of providing recreation programs. Their role is more as a facilitator, providing the parks and facilities that others, nonprofits and groups may use to provide programs. You also don't see recommendations about becoming a destination sports venue. We heard about several opportunities in the area for the city to get involved in some major sports complex. And while we agree there are sports fields needs, we don't see the city investing in that direction at this point. And then while schools play an important role in terms of providing outdoor recreation opportunities in sports fields, we didn't recommend a specific partnership with them to meet your sports fields needs. We think the leagues, it sounds like, are doing a good job of coordinating there. So there are opportunities, though, for partnerships. And these aren't recommendations per se. We just wanted to call attention to the fact that there are opportunities on the table to collaborate with different groups to be able to enhance what the city's providing. And those are everything from, a couple of new ones that have arisen, with Marion County potentially interested in help funding some soccer fields for a program that would be supported by the Mid-Valley Soccer Club. They specifically are looking for an artificial turf field that could be used year-round. We know, and you all have heard conversations around the potential new adventure course out at Kaiser Rapid Parks and the coordination with an ROTC program. Salem Rugby also approached the city and indicated a desire to have and potentially support and share not only rugby fields, but they acknowledge that it wouldn't have to be full-time rugby fields. So some type of multi-use field that could support rugby and or other sports. And then there's others listed there that are groups that have come forward and have either helped in the past, or there's an opportunity to connect with them in some way to partner on some of the different opportunities that we're going to talk about. With regards to site recommendations, we're going to give you the really fast overview, and that is to acknowledge that we're looking at some things that are new, some things that you are just repairing and replacing what's there, and some that are in the middle, which is expand and enhance what you have to have better opportunities based on what's already there. And we started looking at these just to give you a sense of to what extent are you investing in new versus repair and replacement, and to what extent are you investing in things like sports versus play versus picnic shelters and other opportunities. And what you'll see is that there are a lot of enhancements that are needed, just general park enhancements, amenities, ADA improvements. And so for those, there's an allowance at the key sites for those types of upgrades when you improve the rest of the park. Beyond that, there's certainly emphasis again on those goals that we shared with you earlier. So enhancing walking and biking opportunities through trails and paths, making sure that you are supporting sports and active recreation and play in particular. I want to spend a bit on Keizer Rapids Park, recognizing that that is probably going to be the site with the highest investment and also the most opportunity. And it looks like a really busy site on this concept. But the thing to understand is that a lot of the site is actually in a wetlands and flood zone area. So a lot of it will just be kept in a mostly natural state with all those trails running through it that you see. So that leaves the smaller part on the eastern side with an opportunity to enhance that in terms of its developed park features. One of the things we looked very carefully at, though, was the site's location adjacent to the nearby neighbors. And so on this list, an important part, and I'm calling it up to the top to be clear, is there would definitely need to be a buffer in between the park and the residential areas to the east of the site. An expansion of not only the arboretum, but the vegetation, and potentially even putting a berm there between any developed sports uses and nearby neighbors to minimize impacts and noise. But having said that, this site is going to be the only opportunity to really meet those sports fields needs that were identified in this plan. And so the site concept shows in the northeast an opportunity to provide 3 multi-use fields that actually work well in terms of the partnerships, both for soccer and for rugby, that were interested. So there may be partner support in building and investing in those. We are also recognizing that there needs to be picnic shelter or shade near the big toy, with the added uses there, and expansion of the restroom, a new sports court to go in there, which could be either basketball or futsal. I think the desire was for a basketball court. One of the things to consider is, again, the noise impact for nearby neighbors. The adventure course will appear in that area just south of where the big toy is, and that's where the 3rd multi-use sports field would be. If one of the 3 sports fields is artificial turf, and I think that would depend entirely on the partner investment and what they are able to support, the best location for that would be closest to the expanded parking area that's across from the dog park there on the north side. Recognizing that you'll need not only a space for cars, but then that would provide easy access to an artificial turf field that's actually one of the drier areas of the park as well. So then moving just west of the big toy, where the current sand volleyball court is, there's an opportunity there to add a pickleball complex, pickleball being one of the sports activities that we heard strong demand for here. And then looking at where the amphitheater is located, an opportunity to add an expanded plaza in front of that to better support community events and activities at the amphitheater. And then moving down towards the southeast side of the park, you'll see an overflow parking there. We want to make sure we're not paving the entire park under with parking, but recognizing that events and special activities may need additional parking. That's the location that's near a new open play field to support play, as well as an event space for community events. The site will include more picnic shelters or picnic tables there along the river, as well as some nature play elements along the trail there along the river. The boat ramp remains as is. However, what you'll see is an added emphasis to provide access to the boat-in campsite, as well as different fishing access points there along the bank. The rest of the park, for the most part, again, remains in its natural state without change other than the added maintenance resources to take care of it. With the exception of in the northwest, there's a current bike skills area that should be expanded to support those diverse uses. So looking at a few other key sites, Little League Fields, again mentioned earlier, that is the site that we identified as most in need of improvements based on the condition of amenities and facilities there. It's one of those sites where the new operator, when they come in, will have to invest heavily in site improvements. This master plan will provide guidance on the types of improvements and investments that are needed. We wanted to just give you a sense of the other parks. We haven't gone into any great detail about all of these, but just to give you a sense of how it balances investment across the system. At Claggett Creek, there's an opportunity there to improve the sports field, add the loop path, improve views of the creek, and improve amenities and facilities. At Bob Newton, replace the existing playground with more of a thematic playground, improving the picnic area and reorienting in pickleball courts. Bob Newton was one we talked about that because of nearby needs, there's an opportunity to think of it almost as a community park, so to enhance it and give it a little bit more emphasis. The Wallace House was another one that on the south side we indicated was one to give a little bit more emphasis. So here it's really about adding a picnic shelter, a sports court for active recreation to go with the fitness equipment that was just recently added, and then improved access to the lower portion of the park. Because here is a site, unlike Palmacia, where there is a stronger opportunity for more people to get access to the water. So it's worth a greater investment there to improve the staircase down to the water than at Palmacia. With regards to Woodlamet Manor, it's about replacing the existing sports courts and some minor erosion control and improvements. Country Glen, there's an opportunity for a dog park there, although that site is fairly wet, so that would be something to consider. But we definitely heard demand for another dog park at other parts of the city, so you don't have to go to Keizer Rapids. Ben Miller replacing the playground, at Meadows adding potentially a new sports court and more accessible picnic paths. Bear Park is one that we talked to you at length about, recognizing that there's a stronger need for nearby neighbors to have an opportunity to do something, but also a real desire to keep that as a more natural area. So it's really minor improvements, such as adding some nature play elements and a dog waste station and maybe a couple more tables. Sunset Park, there's still a question. That's one with an opportunity, again, for good water access, but the access at the top of the park before you get down to the water is a little challenging. So there's still a question there on whether a non-motorized boat launch could be added to provide canoe kayak opportunities along the river as part of the water trail. And then at Ryan Hill Memorial Park, adding bike amenities, recognizing that it's a good wayside there for the trail corridor that goes by and in a connection to the businesses that are there, a great place to have a picnic. Beyond that, there are minor improvements at all other sites across the system, including those ADA improvements. And just to talk about those other considerations, Palmacia, again, that's one where we discussed that here last time to identify the best opportunity. And the desire is to hang on to it as a resource, especially given the dike that's there, but not necessarily to invest in it for its recreation use, given some limitations there at the site. But potentially, partnering with the nearby neighbors, they have an opportunity then to enhance that for their own use. And then at Northridge, that one's a challenge because that's definitely an area of need of the community. But given the wetlands and the topography, it will require a substantial investment to improve it to meet not only neighborhood needs, but trail corridor needs as part of that Claggett Creek Trail. The thought there is potentially to hang on to it until that trail corridor is ready to develop. And then at that point, look at other opportunities such as interpretive signage or nature play elements along the trail to meet the needs of nearby neighbors. So there is the overview of where we stand on recommendations. So my question to you tonight is whether there are any questions about what you heard. Is anything missing from these recommendations? And then, since we are moving right into developing the action plan with short-term priorities, I would love to have your feedback on what you feel are the most important things to carry forward into that short-term action plan. Thank you.
I had a question. I saw pump track and I saw bike skills track. Is that the same thing?
So they're a little bit different. A pump track is a riding feature that's circular that basically gives people an opportunity to move over hills without pedaling. So
Right.
it's a good introductory place for mountain biking, for example.
Right.
Versus a bike skills course, different from a BMX track, which is more so for racing. A bike skills course, again, has different skill elements, ramps, platforms, and other things that provide an introductory way to mountain biking as well.
Okay, thank you.
One question I saw mentioned a couple of times on a few of the slides about improved improved sports fields. And I was wondering, what were the specific envisioned improvements? Is it like irrigation or like specifically Claggett Park, it was mentioned improved sports fields. And I was just wondering what the nature of the improvements might look like that's envisioned.
So part of what goes on at Claggett, for example, is there's some recommendations with regards to not only improving parking, because parking becomes an issue when sports are in play, but with the fields themselves. I think the challenge there is that people want to have those fields really enhanced for more extensive use. I think if the Kaiser Rapids Park fields are developed, that will take some of the demand off of the Claggett fields, which will give them more rest opportunity, field rest, to allow them to rejuvenate. So we're not talking about going in and completely regrading or restructuring, but making sure that they are playable in places where the field has become a little hummocky and there's pits and things in it, making sure that we're evening those out, maintaining them, the grass at the right level for play and that type of stuff.
So improvement is more like ongoing maintenance.
Yes, that's fair to
Okay.
say.
And then the other question I had was, obviously we had the presentation earlier this year, I think it was the Schoonover presentation about getting funding for Frisbee golf. And I didn't see any mention of Frisbee golf. I will be honest, I don't know exactly where the whole course is laid out over there, but I didn't see it mentioned in the actual map.
Yes, in the undeveloped section of Keizer Rapids.
All in the undeveloped?
Yes, that back in the original gravel pit.
Okay.
And it's an existing amenity that's already there, they're just doing improvements.
So all of those little
It's on the bottom
triangles
half.
that appear on the,
Huh?
Okay, that represents.
Yeah, over in the seasonal use area.
each of those little triangles
Okay.
on the west side represent holes in the
Gotcha,
disc
okay.
golf course. And my understanding is it does not need improvements, but there is an opportunity to enhance.
Well, what you're referring to is the baskets are being updated.
Right, I didn't know if.
But it's on the master plan currently, and it's an existing asset, so we're not showing like a new asset, like what we were referring to with the sports fields.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Will we be getting a copy of this emailed to us?
Certainly.
And we've just replaced the sports court in the Willamette Manor Park. So I don't think we need to
Okay.
replace that one, do we?
Fabulous.
Bob Newton too, I think, right?
We've
I was
not
just
done
there.
Bob
It's
Newton.
in pretty good shape.
Willamette Manor is a new tennis court.
No,
Yeah.
Bob,
And
sorry.
It's tennis court, strive for pickleball, and there's a basketball hoop. What more can you ask? Oh, we could put a new tetherball on that post.
Actually, Bob Newton has some issues going on with the court. I mean, that was,
Oh.
yeah.
What she said in a loud manner. So Bob Newton, yeah.
Yeah, I think they recognize it. And when you say reorienting, I'm assuming that also means resurfacing, since there are major cracks.
I'm not sure what you're referring
At
to.
Bob Newton.
Yeah, when that's improved, right now it's laid out so that depending on the time of day, you're looking into the sun when you're playing. And so ideally it will be oriented and then it would have to be resurfaced and restriped.
At Kaiser Rapids with the lined out multi-use sports fields, is the expectation that all three of those areas, even absent of doing like a turf field, that they would all need to be regraded and flattened out, or any of them already to the extent that you could use them for a sports field?
My sense of things is that they would have to be regraded with a appropriate drainage foundation provided, especially the one that's near the adventure course, that there is a small ravine that cuts across the adventure course and potentially creates a hazard, a drainage hazard right now with regards to a potential sports field there. That's part of the reason we recommend that the two closest to the neighborhood remain as grass fields as well.
Any other questions? Mr. Lawyer?
No, I think it's important to point out, we're still in the 3 to 5 year sort of catch-up phase with the operations and maintenance stuff that Robert and his team have been tackling and doing a tremendous job on. And I think that there's probably still things that have been identified that are yet to come. And I think it's important to note that this would not have been even possible had it not been for the city council approving the parks fee. And so, this master plan, I think, carries a little more weight with it than what we've seen in the past, simply because there's an actionable plan that can be put forward. And really, Robert is the expert on sort of the timing of when these projects can come in and how all those things make sense. I mean, I think we could all, if you pulled us all and asked us all for our individual priorities, you'd get very different responses on that. And so I think with Robert being the expert and then leaning on, his staff and the public works director and whatnot, I think that they're going to help, because I think we've seen some of the sort of conceptual ideas of things we want to do, aspirational goals and things like that. But, I think it's just really important to note that it's very exciting to be here and be talking about the future and sort of, looking back at all the hard work that's been done and recognizing that it's been the community that's done a lot of it, it's been the staff that's done a lot of it, and it's just a great position to be in. I think the recommendations, all the things that are on there as far as, the goals and the things that folks have identified are valuable, and especially in the maintenance things, and I think what's here is really well done, personally. The biking, the bike trails, all these things. I mean, it's great. You go back on those trails and there's lots of opportunity to freshen them up and do some neat things and, maybe get a scenic path and clag it and everything else like that. But I think it's important to also weigh, what's great to have, but then what burden does that place on the 3 park staff that we have, so that we're not sort of jumping out over the top of our skis and then having to go back and say, gosh, we're putting ourselves in another position where it's just challenging to maintain that. And so, great to be aspirational, but at the same time, I think there has to be some, real checks along the way to make sure that we're not putting Robert and his team in a position where they're already stretched thin, and they're already stretched thin. So just wanted to note that for the record.
And that's an excellent point, if I can respond to that real quickly. One of the things to keep in mind is that partners often will volunteer to bring money and/or resources to the development of something they'd like to be developed, whether it's a soccer field or rugby field or pickleball courts. But often what they don't bring to the table, unless it's volunteer labor, are the ongoing needs to maintain it. And obviously, we've heard from some of your community that they have stepped in and continue to do that as well. But yes, we would definitely want to make sure that we are looking at the long-term maintenance and operations for any of this. Ms. Carr?
My question is this to be done, like, just an advice to do it in a short period of time, or is it over a 10-year period, or what?
These are 10-year recommendations.
Okay.
I would say there's more here than you will accomplish in 10 years. So our next step is to identify where are the short-term projects, the medium-term, and then the long-term, which are beyond 10 years.
I know there's some projects that probably have more urgency than others, right? So, is there some that, like, we have to do it right now?
I understand that's pickleball.
Stricken from the record.
Let's turn his mic
No,
off.
I mean, if I may, Mr. Chair, I think my response to that is I think Robert still has some operation and maintenance stuff that is still on the list that needs to be completed. So for me, the finalizing that objective, which I think is the objective that got the council to the point of considering the fee, is my absolute number one priority first and foremost, because that's the loudest voice we heard from the community, was that taking care of the operations and maintenance first and foremost is the absolute priority. And so we have had things that have come along that I think the park staff have allowed to happen because they haven't distracted from their ability to continue to do the good work. But for me, continuing to complete that 3 to 5 year plan is absolutely a priority personally.
And I would agree with that. I think that continuing with those priority projects is important. What may shift this trajectory is the ARPA funding that is becoming available, and the recognition that, as Marion County noted in their proposal for the soccer field, that may provide them an opportunity to invest in things like soccer fields that they wouldn't have been able to do. So that's where those partners may step up and allow you to move projects forward more quickly that you wouldn't otherwise do.
Right.
Just real quick you mentioned Marion County. We received a letter specifically from Mid-Valley Soccer Club. There was no mention of Marion County partnering with the soccer club to do so. Is there a separate documentation that was submitted by Marion County to say that they would partner on something, or is this just an assumed thing? Is this something that somebody over at Mid-Valley Soccer Club mentioned, was that it was in conjunction with Marion County? I'm just curious with what the expectation was with that.
You want to take that? So, Mr. Chair, if I may, and I'll state for the record, I have a potential conflict of interest on this. I work for the county. The commissioners, Commissioner Willis specifically has looked at, as she mentioned, providing ARPA dollars to provide, to partner with the city of Kaiser to fund a soccer field. And with that, one of the organizations that was talked to, I think is, I don't even know what it's called, the Mid-Valley Soccer Club. I think I think that's all part of the partnership conversation. I think what's before us today is whether or not in the master plan we want to identify a space within the master plan to do this, right? So I don't think correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we're approving a partnership. We're just approving or making a recommendation for whether or not a soccer field could or should go in Keizer Rapids Park. And I don't know why they sent this letter, but yeah.
Any other comments, questions? Counselor?
I do have one question. Thank you, Chair. Robert, and just, I know your boss is sitting back there, but if you actually, how many people do you actually need on your staff to maintain the parks and not feel like you're having to catch up all the time? Out of curiosity.
I mean, I think we're doing a decent job maintaining what we have right now.
Absolutely.
I do absolutely fear that in the future, as we continue to develop more, that we're gonna start to feel behind again. So currently, I have 3 full-time employees underneath me that help maintain parks, and then we hire up to 3 summer temporary employees on top of those. So that's what we currently use, and I think we're doing a pretty darn good job with what we got. If we had more people, we could obviously do a better job, but that's kind of an opinion, you know, between different people of how a park should look.
Your boss is ready.
Yeah, I know. Yes, go ahead,
Yes,
Bill.
Mr. Lawyer. Oh, Mr. Lawyer.
Done.
Here we go.
Done.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I couldn't be quiet any longer. With regards to the 3 to 5 year plan and the improvements and upgrades that were outlined within that plan, I think Robert kind of forgot this piece. We know and have known once that 3 to 5 year plan is completed, we're gonna have to add some staff to maintain this stuff. So there, in my mind, excuse me, there will be a transition next 2 to 3 years, hopefully, if things go right, less of a focus on improvement dollars and take some of those improvement dollars and add staff to help maintain things. So, remember, we talked about that? So, to answer your question, that 3 to 5 year plan, we get that done, that'll be the time we start adding staff to take care of all the stuff we've just built over the last 3 to 5 years, so.
Thank you.
Just needed to add that.
Thank you, Bill.
Any other comments or questions?
One additional question I have. I don't remember seeing it in the presentation, and please remind me if, does any of this with the 10-year master plan include or a plan for any additional fees that will fund some of this, or is the expectation that it's all based off of the current fee we have and then any fundraising or partnership dollars or anything like that that would make any of this come to fruition?
So we will look at funding resources needed. For example, we're evaluating systems development charges, which only funds capacity enhancement projects and new growth. So it wouldn't be able to support the improvements needed to the existing system. So that's one funding source, but we will look at the shortfall in terms of what people want and need. That's where some of these partnership opportunities come into play as well, in terms of bringing additional funding. But at this time, we don't anticipate matching every single project with the funding resource because those funding resources are not available.
Any other comments, questions?
No, I think at the end you have 2 questions, right? At the presentation. And I'll just say, this is my own personal position. I think a huge part of why Kaiser is successful in so many things is because we listen to the community, which I think provided the guts of your presentation here. And we also really rely very heavily on the expertise of Robert and his team. And so I think for me, what I hear is finish the 3 to 5 year plan. There's that transition period to bring on the staff that Mr. Lawyer described. And then really allowing Robert and his team to sort of set the prioritization, understanding that partnerships and things like that may come along. But you know, they're the subject matter experts, and they can come to us and you know, there's things that we say, well, maybe we don't like this or maybe we don't like that. And a lot of times he'll, you know, budge here or not budge there and explain the fallacy of my thought process sometimes. But, you know, ultimately for me, I think it's stick with the plan we've got, roll in the transition, lean on the community and their response, and let Robert and his team sort of build the plan. That's just me.
Thank you, Mr. Lawyer. Any other questions, comments, concerns? And I guess we thank you for your efforts.
All right, thank you so much. Next time I'll be back, we'll be bringing a draft plan to you that will be available for your comment to see if it's ready to recommend to council for adoption.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Approval of the bands. You want to do this as one big group? Just approve them all? Okay, then I need a motion to approve all the bands. Unless somebody wants to discuss them.
Motion to approve them?
We have a motion to approve all the bands at once. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. We have a motion to approve all the bands simultaneously. It's been second. Any discussion? Yes?
Question, have they all been previously,
The flex tones I know were there. I'm not sure about the rest of them.
Mr. Chair,
Yes?
this is not working anyway. Technically, they aren't supposed to play at the amphitheater until they have been approved. These will go on a list of approved bands.
okay.
Any other discussion? All right, there being no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Opposed, the bands are approved all at once. Oh boy, parks reports. Mike. Pella.
So, Robert, I continue to believe that the parks guys do a great job on the parks. I absolutely love Sunset Park when I go by there to look at it, and I always pick the late afternoon. It's a wonderful time to go by. The light, huh? Probably not. Is it on now?
You gotta tilt it down a little bit, Mike.
Better.
Nope.
There we go. Okay, it was on before, it just wasn't up. I'm kind of leaving back here. Sunset Park is absolutely beautiful, I think, just sitting there staring. I love the benches, I'm sitting there, looking to the west. It's just really nice. And Willamette Manor looked really good too. And there was no branch on top of the gazebo this time, so that was nice. And was there actually a toy added on top of that thing that was sticking up?
Yeah.
I think there was,
Teeter
so
totter.
I didn't see anything.
I was finally able to get some parts for that.
Huh?
I was able to get some
So that
replacement
was-
parts.
So I didn't have a complaint there, so everything looked great.
Clay, there in Hidden Creek?
Yes, I'm actually by Bear on a regular basis. It's right by my home. Looks great. Looks like they've got some shredded tree products that they're going to be spreading out to some mulch. And was by Hidden Creek within the last week and looks fine. So, good job.
Matthew.
It's been a few weeks. Been a few weeks since I've been by both of these parks, but yeah, I mean, you can't ever say enough about Robert and his crew taking care of things. Man, I love Palmacia. It's a beautiful little park, and I'll just leave it at that for right now.
Matt.
Yeah, so, Wallace House, a lot of leaves going here and there, but, it's a nice park. Northview, I'm gonna brag on just a little bit. Miranda Coleman, who's the the youth counselor, called me, a month ago, and said, hey, we got homecoming coming up, and the McNary leadership really wants to do a service project the week prior to homecoming. And I'm kind of a sucker for projects and helping the kids get engaged. And so reached out to Robert, and we had just been on the parks tour, I think the day before, and noticed at Northview that the wood chips there had gotten low in some of the areas. And so talked to Miranda about it, and she pulled together the plan. And we had a little over 30 students from McNary, both from the leadership group, but also the junior OTC students that are out there. And I got to tell you, Javier, that runs that program, is such an amazing, stellar human being, and his passion for his students and his drive to work with these students is just, he's a special person. And I say that because he really put me to task when it came to this project, because normally, I'm the cheap project coordinator. I go by the $5 or $6 Little Caesars pizzas. And as we were having our meeting talking about this, he says, well, I'm cooking steak and shrimp for my students. And I, what? You're going to make me look like a dirtbag with all these leadership kids. You got steak and shrimp, I'm bringing, microwave pizza. No, and what it boiled down to is they had a challenge. They have to raise a bunch of money every year, and he had challenged them if they got 50% of their goal, he would do a barbecue for them. And so Javier, being the super great guy that he was, recognized he didn't have as many students as he originally thought, and the numbers that came with leadership kind of made up that difference. And so he was kind enough to bail me out a little bit on that. And, we bought some hot dogs and some other stuff to kind of go along with it. But how many yards of bark dust was that?
It was a little over 20.
20 yards?
Of engineered wood fiber.
Engineered wood fiber, excuse me for using the wrong nomenclature. So about 20 yards of the material. And, we had this, we started right at 10. And I think I texted Robert about 10 minutes to 11, and there was less than 2 yards of the material left. And they got it knocked out really quick. And so, filled up the gaps. They raked everything up and got it kind of fluffed up, and they filled up the gaps underneath the slide and the swings. And just did a really, really great job. And, I think it's great from two lenses. One, continuing to engage the junior ROTC cadets, but then also leadership folks coming out and wanting to do that project. And again, just really thank you to Robert for his continued support of these volunteer projects, because I think they're really necessary. And I really appreciate Mr. Poteet and his group for going down and taking all the really raunchy stuff out of Paul Messia, because when I took those leadership students a couple months, we didn't get any of that. So thank you for helping out with that at Paul Messia. Wasn't it Paul Messia where you guys found some interesting items?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for bailing me out on that one. So we're continuing to do the projects. Javier actually came onto the Watershed Council, which is great because he's got a natural nexus for projects. His cadets are tasked to do a large project once a quarter. And so as we're kind of looking around, we're seeing things maybe in your individual parks, and you see some opportunity, let me know. And with the Watershed Council and working with Robert, I can help kind of coordinate some of those things. So we can still do some really great volunteer work. But it was beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. About 60-something degrees out there. The sun was shining. Couldn't have asked for a better day. It was great.
Thank you, Matt. What about Wallace House?
I talked about Wallace House.
Okay.
I said it's a beautiful park. There's lots of leaves falling, and it's very well maintained.
Oh, okay. I'll turn my hearing aids up.
Fair enough.
Staff report.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt, for assisting in that project. Those types of projects are really helpful to our staff. We have 3 people that go out and do a project like that, and it takes us days. And 30 people show up and knock it out in an hour. I mean, any volunteer project that, you can get numbers to is always a huge, huge help. So thank you to everybody who has helped in those areas over the last number of years. Staff's basically, we've been going around starting up our winterization process through our parks. So irrigation systems, the splash fountain, we were out there all day winterizing the splash fountain, making sure all the water's drained out of all the pipes and everything's put away properly so we don't have issues. It's that time of year already, as everybody felt today. The air was a little cold. So started mowing and blowing leaves. Going into November, that's basically what we do for the next 6 weeks. So lots and lots of leaves. And we've also been doing some fall pruning in various areas. So just trying to get caught up on all the plants that have grown over the summer and getting prepped for winter. So that's basically what we've been up to lately. Thank you.
Just One thing really quick, Robert. So you said you have 3 guys and it would take you days to do 20 yards of debris. 30 people can get it done in an hour, so your guys could really technically get that done in 10 hours.
Yeah.
Right?
They could.
I'm just kidding.
Still more than one work day.
I say, your guys are moving slow. Just kidding.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Staff report.
Turn my
Just
microphone.
gave you stuff.
You big bad.
I'm done. That's it. Thank you.
That was the last one. Staff report.
That's,
We did it.
You just gave it.
Oh, I really have to turn up my hearing aids. Council liaison point.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm sure you guys watch the council meetings and obviously know some of the major things that we have been working on. I think the largest one is the city manager recruitment, which boy, oh boy, is that a process or what? At this stage, we have, hired Prothman, and we've been working with the gentleman from Prothman to come up with what we're looking for as a city manager. And he's attempting to make sure he makes contact with each council member, gets their opinion. I'm having a heck of a time connecting with him. So instead, I went and asked all the city, department heads what they wanted in the city manager. And it was really cool because I got the emails back and I just said, you're the one who has to work for him, not me. I could be gone in a year. So tell me what you're looking for in a leader. And got some great feedback from that. And just wanted to share, we've got such great department heads, very, very thoughtful, very focused truly on their staff and the overall well-being of the city and the staff here. And just really wanting to maintain that feeling of people, working well together and that leadership and community that they have here. So that being said, once we have now kind of gathered this information, they are going to be coming back. We had a draft of kind of what the job announcement would look like, because we haven't even gotten to the job announcement yet. It's a process. But once that is kind of decided upon, it will actually go out to public comment for the hiring standards, criteria, and policy directive, as Mr. Johnson labeled that. And basically, so there will be a public hearing that everyone can look at the job description and speak up. So I would highly recommend that everyone participate in that process. We're going to try to get it out as much as we can on social media, things like that, so that we can then, put it out there and start the recruiting process and see what kind of, who we get. And there's a lot of talk, there's a lot of opinions. Does this person need to have some kind of formal education? Does this person need to have, past city manager experience? And everyone has their specific preferences. And so we want to hear that. We want to know, we want to keep it as open as we possibly can, but we also realize that this person is running the city of Keizer. And so that's a big deal. That is one of the only 3 employees that actually report to the city council: city manager, city attorney, and municipal judge. Those are the only 3 employees that we have. So making the decision of 7 people, having 7 people agree upon one individual will be a slow process. But it's taking, we're getting there. And obviously we want to be slow and very, very careful, because in all the years that I would never imagined I'd be hiring a city manager. I can just say that. Our last one lasted 21 years, and that was obviously not a moment we thought was going to come, to him departing from us. So be patient with us as we go through this process. It's been really tricky because we don't have a book in the back room that says how to hire a city manager. There's not really a policy for it, so you're kind of making it up as you go. And we're doing the best we can with that. So that being said, obviously, stay tuned. That's very critical. I think everyone should be as involved as possible in that. That is your city manager. That is the person who runs everything. So I would encourage that. The other thing that we just worked through on Monday night, and I'm pretty excited about this actually, is the community engagement committee. I think that's what we're naming it. But we went through, and basically this is a way of getting our diversity, equity, and inclusion folded into the stuff at the city. And one of the things I was listening to as we were going through the park stuff is just even the smallest thing, let's make sure that these are accessible. These trails are accessible to people who may have a disability. That we look at the lens of each thing that we're doing, and it's going to actually come down to parks. It'll come to every committee And we were discussing how this particular committee would be working with additional committees to make sure that whatever we're working on, that we're keeping the right lens there. And I'm really excited about this group. I think we're going to be able to accomplish some really cool things and do some reach out that's long overdue. So we've got that draft put together. I believe we will be discussing it on the 18th. I did get confirmation. I just looked through the RFP regarding the amphitheater. It looks like it's coming on the 18th. So that will obviously be a meeting that everyone wants to either attend or, obviously watch online. So those are the two big ones that I have right now. So thank you very much.
Other business? Nope. There's one more. Can we stand adjourned at 7:36?